All right, so for this last part, I'm going to give you a current video. What that means is a video for this specific semester, okay? So if you, and hopefully you saw this, if you run into any issues with your Git push, and this is where you're pushing code into GitHub, then make sure you just copy and paste this code into your command line and putting in your name and whatever email address you used for your GitHub account. That should help you if you do run into that. Okay. So in this last video, I thought I'd just do a little summary and show you just how, kind of a little more quick setup. And then also the last part, which is how I want you to submit this code. Okay. And this is how you will submit it from the here on out. Okay. So I'm going to do a quick thing as I'm already have my two repos set up. So I'm going to go ahead and clone both, right? So I'm going to grab that URL. I am setting in a directory called CIT94FA19. In VS Code, I have the terminal open. So I'm going to do a git clone, and then I'm going to paste. Now, because of my setup, I actually have to do a paste this way. And so what this is going to do is in this current directory, it's going to clone my public. And then I'm going to do it again, but this time I will do my private. And again, I've already gone over this, but I thought it would just be good to give you a little quick setup, right? So here, that was my public. So now I'll do my private, because private's the one I'm actually going to show you, because that's the one you're generally submitting, although you're submitting code out of both of them. So then now I'm in that same directory still, and now I will do clone the other one, which will give me the setup that I need. So now I'm doing the private. Okay. Good. So now I have both of those directories set up. Now in VS Code, you can actually open those up individually, or you can open up the base folder, whichever way you feel comfortable. It doesn't really matter. And the key is, how do you like to do it? So for me, I'm actually going to go ahead now in my private repo, and I'm going to create that directory that Andrew talks about. And here's what I mean. Is right here on this last video that you should be watching, this section 1 and 2. Great information here. This is where you're actually going to write your first line of code. Okay, so I'm going to create that directory called node course, and then I'm going to push that code out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change into, and I have to do this because of the way I have the folder open, I'm going to change into my private. And this is again where I'm using tab once I know that there's only one directory that will match that. And I just do that from a productivity standpoint. It just makes it easier. So I could at this point navigate to my folder, file manager, whatever it is. But I need to, in this case, make a directory. So I'm going to mkdir, because this is the command for the command line. Notice I'm using bash here. If you're using PowerShell in Windows, that's fine. You can do that. Use whatever command your OS requires. And I'm going to call this, which I want you to, node course. So this is where, and notice how, boom, that directory gets set up in that private repo. And now I'm going to change to node course. I'm going to clear my setup here. And now I'm ready to actually create my first file and run my code. So while I'm in this node course, and notice I click on it, I could do it the command line, but I like to do it here as well. I'm going to do one called hello.js. Is that the name he gives it? I believe it is. Okay, so let's see. When he does it over here, he calls it hello.js. Cool. So then you do console.log. Hello world. Okay, good. So now what I want to do is I want to see if this thing runs. Okay, so I am in the right directory, correct? So node hello.js. And by the way, that threw an error because I didn't put S, I put W. Okay, So now just clear the output so you can see that. Actually, you can't see this, but I have the sun in my eyes just a little bit. All right, so one more time, by the way, up arrow now, because I already have the command in my history, and there we go. So now what I want to show you is, now that I've kind of just done a little brief walkthrough of the setup that you need to have done, now I'm actually going to do the get status. Looks like I have nothing in there. That shouldn't be true. Let's actually just go check over here, because there's two ways for you to, in this case, oh yeah, so I have to track this file. So I'm going to do a get add, and I can do this. I can add just this one file, or if I do star, it will do anything that's in there. Get status. Good. So now I have, the reason it threw me off a little bit is I didn't have a file I was tracking. That's because I hadn't added that. So remember, the idea is you add files into your repo, okay, and then you commit them. So remember, what we're doing here is version control. Okay, so we're actually tracking any changes that go on in my local repos, and then by pushing that out to GitHub, we can all see. In the case of a public repo, we can all see, but in the case of the private repo, only you and I will see that. So now I'm going to do a git commit -m, adding. And by the way, this is what I want you to do. Section 2, okay? So in this case, we are looking at video 7. 7, okay? Good. So now I've committed that file into the local repo, and now I'm going to do, but before I do, I want to show you, right? So this is that's the private one. Okay. So then this is the private one I'm actually going to be pushing to. Okay. So right now there's that directory structure is not there of node course because it hasn't been pushed to GitHub. So if I do a git push, good. Good. Now, this is the point at which, and this is what I talked about in the write-up here, is that if you get an error, make sure you copy and paste that. Okay? So now that you've navigated this whole process, and now you're like, okay, how do I turn in that I've completed this code? Well, let me show you. So in this case, right, there's a couple of ways we could at least look at the code, but I will show you ultimately how I want you to submit it. So now that I've done a refresh, I can see a couple of things. I can see the node course. I can see how long it was. I can actually click into the node course and see the one file I created. Okay. But here's what I want. And here's what I want you to understand. What I will look at and what I want you to and submit is actually go to your commits. Okay. So remember, I want you to commit after each video. And in your video message, I want you to tell me the section and the video you're completing, right? So we just completed section 2, video 7. And so when you start on the next one, right? I don't know if there's any code in this first one, but there is here. Then you would say completed section 3, video 9, okay? So in this way, this is the link you'll give me every time you're completing your codeUp for that week. And what I can see is how many commits you did, and I can see the actual commits you did as well, right? So if you actually click into here, you can actually see what happened. Okay, from a code perspective, this is the code that I added for that. But let me just back up and be clear that this link, how did I get here? Just to kind of give you that again, I'm going to go into my private repo and then I'm going to click on commits. And this is the link. Okay. Now I'm not looking at this from a student's perspective, but what you will have is a way to submit this assignment, and the URL that you're going to give me is going to be this commits inside your private repo. Again, when you're submitting codeUp, that's between you and I only. Now, what we're getting ready to do is move on to looking at your first learn together, and that's where generally that stuff is posted out to your public so everyone can see it. Okay, I thought I'd give you that video just to give you kind of a review of the process, show you what it looks like, how I want you to turn it in. Okay, so actually, I think since we're here, I'll just go ahead. I'll show you a way I can actually look at it from the student's perspective. Let me actually go student's view on this particular item. Okay, so for this particular item, codeUp, see where it says submit assignment? This would be the URL, right? So the name of your repo, commits, and master. And if you want to make a comment, you're welcome to do that. Once you hit submit, then when I go to look at your work, I'll look, did you commit for every video? And then I'll look at some of your commits to make sure you've committed the code along with what that code was required for that section. Okay, I hope this video helps clear up any questions that you might have had regarding this first codeUp and how from here forward you need to submit those. All right, have a good one. Talk to you later.